Welcome to the Path Podcast. It's July 10th, 2024. My name is Tani. Stoked to be here with Auk. How you doing, Auk?
Good. It's great to be here with you too.
Freaking love podcasting with you, man.
I really enjoy. I do freaking love podcasting with you too.
Nice.
I was going to say I really enjoy podcasting with you too, but that sounded like a downgrade.
That's funny. That's really funny. And how do you? And also, how do you know? I would think it's a downgrade though too.
I don't know. I was making an assumption about.
Maybe I would have taken it as like that's Auk being sincerely Auk.
That is true
and that's so weird because that goes right in to the thing I've been thinking about for my little
intro.
What I've been thinking about.
Okay,
thing.
Let's jump into that.
If you were a customer, would you rather? Okay. Many times I have newer employees or employees who have maybe been in other industries. This isn't path culture.
Right.
But it's a challenge to keep it not path culture. And the thing is, it's a kind of a like fuzzy idea that I'm going to present here.
Okay.
But it's like the idea that would you rather that I give you what I think is your perception of the appearance of competence and integrity?
Okay.
Or would you rather I be confident that what I'm going to present with authenticity is competent and has integrity and let you judge for yourself?
Yeah.
And I think it's not an easy answer because there's times when you got to put on a show.
Okay.
As a bike shop, sometimes you got like...
I mean,
there's certain noises that can come from the workshop that honestly I don't really love when customers hear them, like the sounds of hammers hitting stuff hard and the sounds of metal groaning.
Okay, but there are plausible explanations why that actually has to happen.
Or the sound of someone, having a tool slip and hurting themselves and cursing.
Right.
Maybe the sight of them coming out with blood telling us they're going to a workers' comp, like all kinds of things I don't really want the customer to see per se.
Right.
I'm not really going to hide that stuff too much, but I'm not going to put it in their face.
Right.
But there's all these little, here's an example. You're really anxious for your bike.
Right.
We know you are.
Right.
We've done everything we can to get it as fast as we can. It's coming.
Right.
You are also not the only one who's really anxious for your bike. And we have the building your bike in a queue.
Got it.
The bike is going to arrive sometime between now and when you're going to pick it up. And then we've built some time. We still say it's going to arrive in 2 days, but we need 4 days to get it built.
Yeah.
So some customers might ask, when's my bike arriving?
Right.
And someone might just tell them 4 days. Or someone might, in the spirit of honesty and openness, because how open is this really, say your bike will be ready in 4 days.
Right.
Where I'm more of the tendency to be like, it's going to get here in 2 days, but we're going to need an extra 2 days to get it built.
Right.
And some people might be like, but I'm the customer and I want it now.
Right.
And then I think some people are trying to avoid that like uncomfortable conversation where you have to hold your boundary or maybe show that it's a flexible boundary by moving it. Because real good boundaries can be flexible, right?
Right.
So it's kind of like, do I trust you with the information versus do I just want to manage your perceptions?
Man, there's so many different, we're dealing in hypotheticals.
Right. And also too, everyone has to do this all the time is decide how much, because we all, like if you have confidence that you're competent and have integrity, and you do what you think is painting a picture of that for someone, even if it's kind of got some like, say malinformation, say true information that's misleading.
Okay.
Or like, is it quite a direct answer to your question?
Right.
That's another one. Am I going to give you a direct answer to your question or am I going to manage it?
Sometimes I would ask a clarifying question back.
Totally.
Because in that case, the customer says, when is my bike going to be here? And the true answer, the quote true answer is it's going to be here in 2 days.
Yes.
But it's not good. But the intent of what that customer just asked was not when is it going to arrive at the shop. It was probably when is it going to be ready.
I would say for me, as the kind of person I am, when I'm dealing with a person or a business or anything, I can sense the gap.
Yeah.
Like if I'm like, when's my bike going to get there? And you're like, it'll be ready on this day. I'm like, oh, they're avoiding an aspect of the question. And that's cool because I'm not going to pull the, I want it when I want it. I'm just going to be like, I see what they're doing.
Right.
But I'm going to have this like slight, like, oh, they didn't like, I would prefer to be communicated with openness.
Right.
And trust.
But I wouldn't necessarily presume that person wants the 2-step answer. Like
that's a good point.
And so like, that's maybe where a question, and I don't always have the wherewithal to stop and ask that. So the question to me would be, if that person said that, I might say, are you wondering when your bike is going to be ready to be picked up? Or are you wondering when it's going to be delivered? Actually, the box comes to the shop.
Right.
And there's 2 different answers to that.
Right.
And they'd be
but that's also, just from my point of view, more time on both of our parts than me saying it's going to arrive on Wednesday. We'll have it built by Friday.
Yep. You could totally do that. I would
and that's not, you know what? Like sometimes I might just be like, your bike will be ready on Friday. And it depends on the customer a little bit. And it depends on how much time I have to communicate. Right. And it depends on my mindset that day and there's so many other
because when
layers.
you ask, when you open either of those approaches, when you give them the 2-piece information, you're rolling the dice that they're going to enter into I want it on Wednesday, not Friday.
Right. And to me, that is something that's worth rolling the dice on. What if, for example, they let me know that they're leaving Thursday morning and they're not going to get to ride their new bike in Whistler if I don't have it ready on Thursday. Correct. And I'm like, oh, I could easily bump that ahead on the schedule for that.
Right.
Just for example.
Right.
But also, aside from kind of the nuances of this example, because we can kind of get caught in the analogy, in like the different aspects of the analogy, I'm talking more about the spirit of how you approach, how I want to be approached, and for me, sometimes I know I've lost customers over this because not everyone prefers to be approached that way.
Right.
Some people would rather be told what they want to hear than be told. And this kind of goes to the like, customer is always right versus customer is always respected and heard, and we try to help them with what they're navigating.
Yeah.
Because that I feel like the question I'm asking sort of has something to do with this as well.
Yes. I think that I really like how you expanded the customer's always right into customer's always respected, and
because if they're here for our expertise, how is them always being right going to help the situation?
Correct.
Here's another example. Like, let's say sometimes when I work on bikes, I drop tools.
Yep.
And let's say that to me feels like I look incompetent. Okay. I feel a little like sometimes I see a customer see me drop a tool. Like, does this guy even know what he's doing?
Right.
Like it's not like I drop a tool every time I work on a bike.
Right.
But, sometimes like I have both hands going and I'm not fully paying attention to what's in one if the other one's the one doing the work or like whatever. Like might do a fancy
turn
flip
or you bump something. Right.
Or
Totally.
Some shops you have to do 20 push-ups if you drop a tool. Some shops won't fix your bike in front of you because it is very difficult sometimes to not feel as though the customer's judging your work.
Right.
Because then it takes a lot of confidence to be like, go ahead and judge my work. I'm competent and I have integrity. And I think if you can deliver that with like clarity and confidence, there's nothing more reassuring for especially for someone like me who will just sense what's being held out or what's being misdirected. Because there's like information could be true, but also just a slight misdirect.
Yeah,
it's like a magic trick, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like if you're doing a magic trick, I'm going to be looking in your other hand,
For sure. Yeah.
And to me, like having a bike shop is more about like, we're here, we do this. This is, we want to, if you have questions about how we do it, we're happy to talk about it. Like,
right.
I don't know. It's a weird topic.
Yeah, no, it's not. And I think to have the confidence in your competence, skill, and and genuine desire to help the customer in their journey, I think should free you to not have to play to your concept of their perception.
Here's another one. Vulnerable competence and integrity, to me, any form of mask of competence and integrity, no matter how much it is a representation of the truth,
right?
I feel the mask.
You feel the mask.
And I don't think I'm the only one.
Yeah.
Like you could be as competent and have as much integrity as you want. And if you use a mask of that to show me that instead of just letting me see, I'm going to wonder.
I agree. But I kind of think that there's a whole population of people that because maybe they have had the mask for so long that they're not even self-aware of it, and they're around people with the mask for so long that that they're in a community of people who don't know, and so they want that.
I'm really glad you brought this up, because this goes to another thing I've been thinking about this. The whole so many interactions and so much of life is trying to train you to do the mask.
I could see it. Okay, why do you say that? I could see that. Why do you say that?
For the exact reason you just for what you just said, it, to me, describes the pressure of the public maybe losing business because we don't do that. So all kinds of opportunities, friendships and relationships and customers and sales could be lost because someone's not comfortable with that. They're not used to it.
Right.
But that's why there's a lot of kind of bike shops.
And a lot of kind of different kind of salespeople and industries.
And we're going to try to keep it comfortable. Don't get me wrong.
Right. Because there's I've been thinking about like budding friendships, and as you get older in life, you realize that you just don't make many friends. Right. And so then each person that you meet, and then that maybe starts evolving into a friendship or an acquaintance or whatever, stranger acquaintance, whatever.
Right.
You're kind of I could be really just myself. Maybe I don't even know if that's the appropriate thing, but then it's is that the appropriate space in a immediate full disclosure?
I think I lost you. Sorry.
So is immediate full disclosure?
Oh no, trust has to be built.
Yeah, right. And
especially depending on the kind of full disclosure. And I'm not even talking about full disclosure.
Yep.
I'm talking about a communication style.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about a value system.
Right.
And so kind of going back to you tell the customer you need 2 days to build their bike.
Right.
And they're like, they have some answer that doesn't change your value system about it that they think should.
Right.
And you hold your boundary.
Yeah.
I think most customers will respect you for that.
Yeah.
Especially if you're kind about it and hey, I know you really want to ride. We want you to ride ASAP too.
Right.
This is just the line. We have other customers in front of you. Whatever, maybe explain to them whatever they think makes their situation different, that it's not lots of people we really appreciate all your, maybe they're we spend a lot of money there. It's yeah, we really appreciate all your business, but there's a lot of people in front of you in line who also do. And also maybe that's not our only part of how we decide.
Right.
That's just one, for sure, if you're a good customer, we want to help you out, but it's not the only, we also want to help out some kid who's going to race over the hump tomorrow. And we also want to help, there's lots of people we want to help out. Right. So I think there's a customer who's going to respect that. There's a customer who's going to push back on it respectfully and maybe find a compromise.
Yep.
There's a customer, which will be a great customer, by the way.
Yeah.
Always.
Yep.
They'll be loyal to you.
Yep.
And then there's the customer who is going to decide that means you don't like them or you don't respect them or you don't value them.
Right.
And maybe it's fractal. Maybe that same customer also doesn't want to be treated like they're not always right.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe it's more of I'm more talking about stick to what you do and how you do it so that you're something for somebody.
Right.
Too.
Right. Yeah. And Yeah, it's interesting as we keep on this conversation. That same customer, see, it's interesting. When somebody would ask that, I would immediately, because of so much of what I do in my work, is to help people clarify their questions and their requests of work product and what have you. So quite often, I need to interpret on the fly and help jump to the next steps, and then say, like, I think you're asking this, like, and here's solutions to get there. Is that what you're looking for?
Right.
And so, like, to me, if that same thing, Wednesday and Friday, bike coming, and the customer says, when's my bike going to be here? Like, I might be like immediately jumping to, they're asking, the word said when it's going to be here, but they're really asking when it's going to be ready. So I might just say, and in my mind, I'm being fully it's going to be ready on Friday.
Right. And I think that's not that could or could not be in the spirit of what I'm talking about, because there's all the other reasons you might do that.
Right.
So just because you don't always land somewhere that fully looks like valuing that doesn't mean you don't. And as someone who knows you, so you're a lot more guarded than I am.
Right.
And you maybe do spend more time than I do considering what someone's going to think or feel about what you say. Or you're maybe more considerate in that respect.
Right.
But I never, ever have felt as though that caused you to lose space in the conversation.
Right.
Which is kind of also part of what I'm talking about.
Right.
You always, and you never sugarcoat it. You're never just treating me like I need to be right.
Right. Yeah. And it comes, I think the guardedness, that's interesting. I have.
What I'm saying is not necessarily in tension with being guarded or considering your audience and rhetoric or anything like that.
Right.
It's more like, but it's also like maybe making too many assumptions about your audience.
Right. Trying to out of consideration
where
for
they
that
are. Instead, like when it starts to become a judgment.
Right.
Too.
Right.
Like.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And it's also another one where that happens too, is just like, it goes to like having a conversation with someone versus like saying like, yeah, drop off your bike, I'll fix it and give it to you back.
Right.
Right. And I think, we'll circle back on this because too, one of the things I notice is a lot of women come in assuming that we're not going to treat them as though they're worthy of information. We're going to treat them as though they just have to be right. Because a lot of times they get, in places like this, they get kind of like, what's the word? Like when you just act like someone is...
They get stereotyped?
No, well, they do. Like in hardware stores
and
bike shops.
They think that you're going to stereotype them.
And not meet them where they are.
Right.
And not hear them and not listen to them. And instead maybe tell them our idea of what's going on with them.
Right,
which that's another version of it, is telling someone your idea of what's going on with them
right.
versus listening to their idea of what's going on with them. That's also part of this. It's like,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Moving on. Women's Wednesday.
Awesome.
Next one is the 24th, I think. I just lost my note on that.
The 24th.
Nice,
Wednesday, July 24th. So
we're still doing dawn patrol rides and after work rides every other week as well. Right. Check our ride calendar on the website.
We are past the longest day of the year. So we are on the days are going to get shorter.
So is that it just gets better from here, or it just gets worse from here?
Well, I mean, like if you think about a Wednesday night ride or a afternoon ride, I think it might have reached its peak
of time frame, of duration.
Although if you're e-biking, like if the batteries are running out before the sun sets anyways, then you don't need the extra extra daylight. Yeah. So I think we have quite a while before we start having to cut rides short because of daylight.
Other shop news: the Santa Cruz sale is raging.
Fantastic.
Pivot dropped the price by $1,000 on the Pivot Shuttle AM XO with the Bosch motor and the XO transmission.
Wow.
We got in a bunch more Scor sail bikes and a bunch more Scott sail bikes. So the sales are out of hand. Like bike sales right now are crazy.
That's fantastic.
It's the heat of the bike sale season. And it's an interesting dynamic because last year, I think the discounts were maybe even a little bit more.
Right.
But the bikes just kind of sat and people would come back and watch the price go down and watch the price go down.
Right.
This year, it's like, no, like if you see a price that seems too good to be true, don't wait for it to go down again.
Because it'll
like,
be gone.
Bikes are selling out in some cases. Or like we sell the one we have and we can get another one, but like that ends too.
Right.
So that's exciting. We're continuing to ship a lot of Santa Cruzes and Pivots and every brand we sell except Transition out of the state and all over California. Free shipping, free pedals, easy assembly, test ridden, tuned for your needs. We send out this questionnaire where you pick like moto style brakes or not or handlebar spacer spec.
Right.
We cut the bars for free if you want.
Right.
And that's on there.
Right.
So that, we'll really tailor it to your needs for free.
Right. What kind of pedals can you get for free?
Konawawa, the ones I ride, the composites.
The composites, man.
Or something comparable.
Right.
Like if you're looking for clip-ins, it would be compared to like around a Shimano, I think 520.
Okay, right.
And if you want something else, we can credit you the value of the Wawas towards that.
Yep. But who would want anything else?
Not me.
Not me either. The composite Wawas
happy
are
with
awesome.
what I got.
Yes. Man, so speaking of the Wawas, I love how large the platform is.
Yeah, you were telling me that you had a customer try and tell you that they're too big in here the other day.
Yeah, so
I love
it was this individual was looking at all of the pedals, and they were like, all of these things are too big.
Has this individual tried any big pedals?
I don't think so.
Right.
And I was trying to figure out. I was like, what kind of pedals do you ride? And so because we were like looking at even the small Wawas, which are significantly smaller. He's like, man, even those are too big. I was like, oh, what kind of pedals do you ride? And I think he's used to riding like the freebie plastic pedals that come on like a Walmart bike or something.
I wonder if he also has soft soled shoes that almost wrap around them a little bit like hands.
It quite could be, right. He's like the soft sole. He takes you to the extreme on
did he mention he has soft soles?
No,
or it's just a theory. Yeah, I think we should acknowledge that everything has trade-offs.
Yeah,
and I think the major trade-off of a bigger pedal is just more pedal strikes and less clearance. Because like if you're in a trough, you're more likely to get the edges, but also leaning over it all, that starts to become a downward angle on the outside of the pedal.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how much wider the Wawas are than the smaller plastic. I don't know how much wider they actually are.
I suspect almost anyone who tries bigger pedals wouldn't. I suspect it's one of those I don't think I like them things.
Right. Yeah. So, that was an interesting conversation to have.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another one. If you just always assume people are, the customer's always right and don't like hear them out, like you could never show them something they didn't already think, like that maybe big pedals might be good to try.
Right.
And then what do you even come for the bike shop for?
Right. Just to buy the part
like
that
there are a lot of bike shops, and actually I have staff, and I'm not going to like ride this. I more guide this on like a really big picture concept. I'm not in here like don't agree with them. The pedals are small unless you agree with it.
Right.
But I do hear staff who I know don't agree.
Oh, interesting.
Because it's just and there's a way to validate someone's experience without lying. Too.
Sure. Yeah.
Like you could
totally.
say like, hey, like I know a lot of riders who prefer the smaller pedals.
Right.
Rather than like, yeah, me too. Like to take it to the furthest extreme.
Right.
So, but that person who just says, yeah, me too, I think in their head, they're sticking to the image of like support the rider's vision of themselves and have passion about it. And that is maybe even another North Star for the path. So it's like, there's a lot of stars, there's a lot of points of gravity to serve in anything.
Come to a fork in the road.
And again, I'm not so much nitpicking on this stuff as trying to set a tone.
Right.
It's not about like, you didn't do it and you did it there and not.
Right.
It's more like, hey, how are we deciding how we talk to each other?
Yeah. No, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So I saw, did the shop get the Scor 6080 Zs in?
Just one extra large one. It is so rad looking.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I was reading about that and I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it in the shop.
I think it came short a controller.
Oh, okay.
It's like this can happen. Like they rush the first ones out the door and like forget like a part.
Right.
Like it's
and
like
this is like the controller.
And I'm not saying like don't trust the bike.
Right.
Like we go through everything with
Right.
everything's great by the time it hits
Right.
the floor.
Right.
But like sometimes the first run is the more likely to be like, oh, they forgot to put the kiss on them all.
Yeah.
Like
Yep. I mean, with the Bosch motor, you don't actually need the controller.
That's true.
You could cycle through.
That's true. Zach pointed that out too.
So, yeah, but the controller does make it really handy. And the walk mode on the new Bosch is super convenient for keeping it going.
Is it more powerful?
No, I think it's just easier to keep it going.
Like the interface with the
interface with the rider. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
180 mil travel, 190 in the front.
Yeah.
What? That's a big kid.
It is. And
alloy frame only.
Yep, rated for downhill. I guess there's an ASTM standard for downhill alloy bikes.
Sick.
And that's what this one's rated for.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah, 63-degree head angle.
I don't think that's aggressive for what that is.
Okay. I mean, I guess you're right. The relays are 62.5
in the PNW configuration.
In the PNW, yeah.
So, and to have 20 millimeter longer fork.
20 millimeter longer fork.
And a half a degree steeper head angle. I would equate that to like average ride of almost maybe like 3/4 of a degree steeper.
Interesting.
Because you're sagging in an extra 20 millimeters of travel just at sag.
Yeah.
You're down another 6 or 7 millimeters.
Yeah, that's true. Which
I mean at aggressive
degree,
sag, maybe not at sitting on the bike leaning back.
Yeah.
And then by the time you're like halfway through the travel, you're like, yeah.
Right. But I wonder what the head angle on modern downhill World Cup bikes are. I think it's like 62.
I think they range from like 62 to 63 or 63 and a half, mostly, with some outliers past those, I think.
Right. On both sides. Maybe not on both sides.
Maybe. Really? I think I would not be even the littlest bit surprised to see a 61 point something.
That I agree with.
Oh, you're saying no more 64s?
Yeah.
Probably not in the top 15.
Right.
Because there's people too who just ride who sponsors them.
Right.
And then there's also people who have like old school preferences.
Yeah, that's true. But that Scor 6080 is not old school.
No.
Yeah.
It's an interesting bike.
Yeah, it's a 750 watt hour battery. That thing's got to be 58 pounds. I'm sure.
Yeah. At least probably. I think we weighted. I think that was the ballpark.
Right. That's not bad though.
No, especially for alloy.
Yeah. Man, those big boys. I guess they're meant to be ridden in a certain way. What if you?
I see that as a bike to try to like replace a shuttle bike in big mountains with big NAR shuttles.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was kind of wondering. So then, if you're riding those big NAR shuttles, is that bike coming into its own?
Or if you just like that big bike riding style and that weight isn't a deterrent to you.
Right.
Like there are riders who are just so strong and their timing's so good, their position's so good, maybe they ride moto, that weight just doesn't bother them.
Right.
I feel like if I was taller, I could manage a heavier bike, not just a bigger bike.
Right.
because of leverage.
Right.
Especially as the wheelbases get really long.
Yeah.
Being able to pick up the wheels, because it's one thing to have like the strength and the timing and the positioning, but if the leverage is a big deal too.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that bike looks really interesting.
I noticed that you've been wearing those Fox Purevue Goggles.
I have.
They look kind of like SWAT team or something, or like superhero. I can't quite put my finger on what they make me feel.
Goofy. Somebody said goofy. I'm fine with it.
Don't be goofy.
I mean, yeah, in our last podcast, I wore my Laker jersey over my tie-dye shirt, and I meant to only just wear it for the opening comments, but then I was like, man, I wore that thing the whole show.
Yes,
that's okay.
Yes.
But the Purevue goggles, you're right. So I was reading about them. They said supposedly halfway between goggles and glasses, and they fit over prescription glasses. Not all prescription glasses, but the ones I am wearing fit over really, really well. And what's interesting is I don't even put the nose piece in. So if it's over super nice, they stay in place, and it's not like a double nose, So,
cool.
Yeah, super well ventilated.
Yeah, I tried some on, and I noticed that they have incredible periphery vision, like better than goggles or glasses.
Yeah,
and I also noticed that it just felt like air was moving through them, like there was nothing there.
It is very true, very true.
So yeah, I kind of want some, maybe. Might Bobsy out with you.
I wish they would make, and I've been searching for this. I wish they'd make photochromatic lenses. Was changing but they don't. At least not that I can find. But maybe I'll take the clear lenses, see if I could get like a coating put on them.
It'll be interesting to see if this concept sticks.
Yeah.
I feel like they're not exactly halfway between glasses and goggles.
I feel like they're goggles.
I feel like they are redesigned eye protect or reimagined eye protection, like ground up almost.
Right.
I do think they're more in the if I try to come up with a strict definition of goggles, I think they're goggles. They have a strap.
Yep.
They have a strap.
That's
a wide elastic strap.
Yeah.
And
foam. The foam.
Yeah. I think stylistically I might be ready to try them, but functionally they seem awesome.
Oh, functionally they're amazing.
Yeah. And I just love that. Like I just got here in the glasses I had from my whole life.
Right.
Vibe.
And I will say this, right now, this time of year, there's the brush is unless trails have been really brushed back, the brush is, sight lines and what have you, brush is closer to the trails. And I haven't realized how much only wearing glasses makes me blink and turn my head and lose a brief moment of concentration on the trail until I started wearing these Purevues.
Yeah.
They sound like a commercial.
Perfect. This is a commercial.
Exactly. It is a commercial. And having those things on, just being able to look through anything and know, like, come what may, let anything smack me in the eyes, it's going to be fine.
I just had a kind of a revelation.
Right.
This isn't going to help your situation.
Right.
But since I don't wear corrective eyewear when I ride,
right,
I could wear sunglasses with the clear Purevues.
You can.
And then when it starts to get darker, we're in the shade, I could take my glasses off and still have eye protection.
You can.
And I think I'm going to do that. Because before that, I was thinking about your comment about, what are they called again? Photochromatic? Or changing colors, where it can change light and dark.
Whatever,
And I was thinking like, yes, And I was thinking or maybe just quick lens changes, and that just hit me. Like, I'm just going to wear sunglasses and clear Purevue.
Yeah. But this is what I realized too, is if your sunglasses are too like round or too tall, they don't fit under.
Okay.
So
I'll have to get some like Sonny Bono or whatever. Like
John Lennon glasses.
John Lennon's, yeah. Ooh, I like it. How weird would I look in the Purevues with the little funny glasses? Oh yeah. It's like it's like postmodern steampunk.
Oh my gosh! Right. So the Purevues are fantastic. My other little life hack that I've been doing is I bought a couple sets of little spray bottle lens cleaners with lens cloths, and a little pack of half a dozen lens cloths. Put them in little plastic bags, and leave them all over. It's not even my own idea, and so a little.
Are any of our ideas?
Exactly
ours?
not. This one came from a little Auk at my home, and I got a set in my truck, in my bike bag at work, and it's really helpful to keep goggles clean. Because how often have I gotten to the trailhead or gone on a ride with goggles and you're like, dang it.
Yeah.
And you can't clean them well with anything but a little spray bottle and a lens cloth.
Nice.
And enough lens cloths that you can wash them and just wash them. And then while you're washing those, replace the other ones into the place that you needed.
I like this.
It's, so anyways, the Purevue.
Remind me what you put in the spray bottle?
It's just like a lens cleaner. So
like go to the eyeglass store.
Whatever, or Amazon. Amazon's got
Amazon
big bottles of lens cleaner with a couple of like little bottle sprayers all in one. So I just bought a couple of those. This works out well.
Cool. Anything else on those Purevues?
No, those is just again waiting for lenses that change color in the sun.
And now you're running the McCaskill grips. We're Bobsied out on that now.
We are. I got the gray ones. Are you running the gray?
No, mine are black.
Okay, well, I got the gray ones, and I really like them.
What do you notice?
I like the diameter. They're small diameter.
Yeah.
So for my, I have tiny hands.
Are they smaller than what you replaced?
Yes, just a little bit. I believe. And it's amazing.
I wouldn't say you have tiny hands. I'd say you have fairly normal hands, Auk.
Fairly normal hands.
Yeah.
They're definitely, and they're not meaty.
I mean, it depends who you're comparing them to.
Okay, that could be true too. Maybe when people shake some of my hands, some of them feel like I have meaty hands.
I know people who would probably feel that way. I could think of some men whose hands I shake who like my hand wraps around their hand more, like a lot more.
Right. Because, anyways.
Let alone women.
That is one reason why our bike setups are different. Is you have meatier hands than mine, and then
my pointer finger is further away from the outside of my fist than yours.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that makes it so that you ride your brake levers further in. But anyways, the grips. The thing that I noticed too is some lock-on grips. If you kind of feel all around them, some of them aren't plastic all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
They have like a little gap in them.
Right. You're talking about the inner sheath.
The inner sheath, yes. The inner sheath is not full. It's not a full inner sheath.
Right. Like the spank grips, which I really like, are like how you're describing.
They don't have a full inner sheath.
Right.
And you really like those.
I do, but I don't like them as much as the McCaskills these days.
Right.
Those were my go-to for years. And what I do like is that they're wide too. They have a bigger space, and I like the ends on them. They're really like tough.
Yeah. And the Spanx have, it's kind of like tapered on the very end.
But ultimately, I like the feel of the McCaskills better. Now, do you feel any difference in grippiness?
In grippiness. Well, I actually so the set that I'm coming off, and I don't even know the brand or the model, but had a little bit of the ribs.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I didn't really notice the difference, I think, and I don't know if it's just because the conversation that we had, but these grips are solid.
I feel like I've had other grips this narrow,
Yep.
but never this grippy, which I love. this is my thing right now. Grippy rips.
And I wonder if it's the rubber compound, because say like the old, the ODI,
I think it is. I think if you make the rubber compound too hard,
right,
it's not going to be grippy. But if you make it too soft, it gets it yields. It gets vague.
Yeah. And I feel like the McCaskills do a good job.
They're awesome.
They do have a little pattern on it that we kind of were looking at closely, that it seems to be like that pattern resists your hand slipping.
I think I need to reverse mine I think I've been thinking about that, and I think maybe I have mine where like twisting is going to unthread me off the outside of the bar, and I need to reverse them so it's threading me onto the bar.
Yep.
And so that it's like it does what I think it's supposed to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's cool.
Yeah. So the McCaskills are pretty fantastic. And it's interesting. I wonder, you don't see many lock-ons that are dual lock-on anymore.
In other words, I think what you're saying is
they don't have
in the original lock-on grips, there was a clamp on each end of each grip.
Correct.
With bolts. And nowadays, there's only ever a clamp on the inner clamp.
Correct. It's interesting how they can get the clamp with the design of the sheath to clamp just as strong.
Yeah.
Or strong enough that it's not gonna twist.
Yeah. I also think handlebars are not really designed to be clamped at the outsides. They taper out to like really thin out there.
Interesting. And I like it. It is more comfortable with not having a clamp on the outside, especially.
Oh yeah, and it solves the problem of having to come up with some bar end that like covers that so it doesn't scratch your car and hurt and like all that too.
Or stab you through the.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, the McCaskills are excellent,
and it saves weight.
And
it's half the time to change the bars out.
Yeah, right.
Or the grips out.
The grips out. Yeah. So we've probably talked about this on the on my Norco range VLT range fluid. Came with TRP DHR Evos.
Yep.
And I really like them.
I love them. They're my favorite brakes right now. And they're my favorite brakes despite the fact that I can't get what I perceive to be optimal lever position with them.
Interesting.
And I've heard that's going to change. They don't adjust quite in as far to the bars as I want them to.
Right.
But they're so consistent and so powerful.
Yeah.
And
I heard them called old man brakes by someone.
Yeah, we could circle back on that.
Okay.
But I got to the bottom of a particular trail that we've been smelling brake smoke on and stuff the other day on my codes.
Right.
And I was death gripping them. I was death gripping the brakes. And codes are strong. This is not a conversation about bashing codes.
Right.
That trail is a real test of brakes.
It is.
Brakes up.
It is.
I never feel that way with the TRPs on that trail. And the person who was bashing the TRPs has only ridden them on that trail.
Oh, interesting.
So I brought that up with him the other day. I was like, what brakes have you, and recently not ridden any other brakes on that trail.
Oh, right.
So I brought it up with him. I was like, hey, so
what other brakes have you
lately on that trail? Like, oh, maybe he's like, I rode this bike. And then he's like, maybe I don't think he did. Like,
right.
So it's like, yeah, that trail kind of makes brakes feel like they're not working.
Right.
Like try your haze on them and see what happens. Try your haze on that trail. So that's just a theory.
Right.
I don't know, but that it occurred. It really. I will say I think codes are awesome. I know I've told lots of people codes are plenty of brake.
Yeah,
and
totally.
they are for most.
Especially if they're going to come stock on a bike, and that's a phenomenal brake to come stock on a bike and like.
So I have had Maguras and Shimanos.
Yep.
Which in some ways might have more like high heat power, power at the bottom of a trail like that than codes. But I kind of actually prefer codes over Maguras or Shimanos overall. But to me, the TRPs rule.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to either get some aftermarket lever blades or maybe a newly redesigned Master where I can get the brake levers in a little closer. Right. But it's the consistency.
Yep.
it's the power and the way it's
the way that
it's
power,
the window of modulation and under what amount of force it happens.
Right.
All are really excellent. So and the heat performance is the best. It's as good as, I would say it's up there with like Magura's that I've had. That I feel like the Magura's, I really didn't like the lever shape for me.
Right.
And I didn't like the way it just didn't, it gave me the lever shape, even though the power and modulation the power was great. The modulation was a little grabby for me, but something about the way the levers moved gave me arm pump, I felt like. I really don't like the wood screw on the clamp.
Got it.
And they are prone to rubbing. And it can be hard to find brake pads on the road.
Right.
So like all that to say, like I always felt like codes for me were a better choice.
Right.
I like Saints and XTs. I'm not unhappy with those, but those are I have to adjust to them a little bit. Like half a Saint, because they're grabby.
The Saints are grabby.
Ultimately, like I feel a little bit more in control with a brake that has a bigger window of modulation that doesn't come on quite as hard at the beginning.
Right. I'm riding Saints and TRPs right now, and I've been riding the Saints for quite some time, and I really like them. But that is very true about
and the TRPs have big reservoirs for the Masters, and I think there's a lot of fluid in there, and that's part of the heat resistance probably.
Yeah.
And then also they run 2.2 rotors, 2.2, which is wider than most, thicker than most.
Right.
I think they're just and then I saw there's a brake coming out that I think it's going to have 2.6 rotors.
What? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So brakes are getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
Which is great. I think that's good.
I was trying to think. I picked up some metallic pads, the blue TRP pads, and I was wondering. I don't know what comes stock on the TRPs.
Good question. I need to check what's on mine. I usually like a softer pad than a full metallic, especially in our dusty, dry conditions.
Right. Yeah, I've been running the metallics, and I like the metallics. Maybe because I have weaker fingers. Metallics seem to.
Well, as you know, I do think, even though I think they have more modulation overall and less, I think that, as was pointed out on our podcast menu a while ago, I do think the organics have a harder initial bite.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. But there's something about the power curve on metallic that can feel comfortable. And if you're going to ride in wet conditions, metallic every time. Don't ride organic pads in wet conditions if you can avoid it. Right. But if you're going to ride in really dry conditions, maybe a softer pad compound.
I will. Okay,
go ahead.
On the brake still, the Hayes Dominions, that pre-engagement lever feel is really soft.
You mean the free stroke doesn't have a lot of resistance, and I agree, and I really like that.
I really like that too.
I just put some Dominions on my Switchblade, and I haven't really broken them in yet, and I'm excited to see if I love them. I think I probably will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and this particular individual really likes the Hayes Dominions.
True. The person who wasn't so sure, but they haven't taken him down that brake overheater trail.
That'll be interesting.
I don't think.
Yeah. You should try that.
There was a Pink Bike article that I forget which one it was, but it just stuck in my head, this idea that e-bikes have kind of an inherent O-chain behavior. And I think what they're talking about is a little bit of extra play between engagements on the engagements on the
I see
front.
What you're saying, right?
And maybe it does, but unlike an O chain, it's not like it's not like it's not always going to be in the right spot in the play for you, right?
Yeah.
Like an O chain holds itself in a spot where you have that give, where this is just more give, but it could not be where you need it, in the direction you need it, depending on where you are in that engagement point.
But are they talking about like just free engagement before it connects?
Yeah.
Because I think like the O chain, it's a I guess essentially it's
if you took the e-bike front and sprung it, so that it always wound itself out to where it had that play there, then it would be like the O chain. And maybe we should patent that.
More.
No, I honestly think if someone didn't already patent that, that's a patent.
Yeah.
Maybe cut that out of the show.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. But see, I don't know. I mean, I guess so, but I feel like the O chain part of it. So on an e-bike, when that happens, it's just a slap, right?
Well, it depends on if you're all the way against the engagement point or all the way backed off at the end of the last engagement point.
Right. I mean, I presume if you're getting the benefit of the e-bike O chain,
maybe each bump pushes you to the back of the engagement point, and you do get a little bit of extra.
See, every
I
time.
mean, pink bike's not dumb.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
I would believe that it has a slight O-chain effect.
Yeah.
But I think if you sprung it so that it preloaded it for you, it would have more, and you could design a little bit more play into it.
Right.
You
That's
could
what I'm
tune
saying.
that.
That's
you
what
could
I'm
turn it
thinking.
into a real O-chain
Yeah.
effect.
Like just intentionally make the points of engagement less. And then you spring it.
Yeah.
And you spring it. Man, that could work really well.
Yeah.
And the spring could be that it so even though you might be like gaining momentum before you get into that engagement because you have it further out, the spring would help alleviate that.
Yep.
That's awesome.
I have another thing.
Okay.
There's a common conversation in the shop. Like if you haven't bought a bike, like a person comes in, they haven't bought a bike in anywhere from say 4 or 5 years all the way to more.
Okay.
And they can't wrap their heads around the new reaches. They're like, hey, like I ride a large,
right.
My reach is 440, right. Or maybe it's a little bit newer, like it's 460,
right.
Or 470 even.
Right.
And they're like, the new one is 495 or 490 or 485.
It's too big.
They're like, they can't wrap their head around it. And they're afraid they're not going to fit it. And they're like, maybe I'm a medium now.
Right.
And a really common thing that happens when this conversation gets kind of difficult to sort out is I'm like, hey, you know what? Why don't you bring your bike in? We'll take some measurements. So recently a guy had a BMC 4-stroke, 2015.
Yep.
If I remember correctly, it was like 30, maybe even 40 millimeters shorter reach than his bike.
Wow.
Or longer.
Longer.
Right. And he couldn't like mentally he was blowing up. He wanted the bike, but like.
Right. Sure.
So I measured from the nose of the saddle to the stem clamp at the bar.
Yep.
On both bikes.
Yep.
And it was exactly the same.
Oh, wow.
And he was mind blown. He's like, how can that be? Right. And he's like, look at him. Look at the wheelbases. Look at everything. I'm like, I know. But like, look at the seat angles.
Look at
where the seats are.
Relative to the bottom bracket.
So point being, when I did that, he and I were referring to that casually as the reach.
Yeah.
But that's not the reach. The measurement I took isn't. Right. I mean, the frame geometry version of reach is the horizontal measurement from the bottom bracket of the headset.
Yep.
Right. Like,
yeah.
So
it's a difficult one to actually get
without a tool. Yeah. Or without a 4-foot level and balancing the bike level and a couple 4-foot levels and, or a plumb and a level. So anyway, you can do it, but that's rider reach. That's rider position reach. You can call it what you want. Nose of saddle to handlebar.
Yeah.
A lot of that long reach is just taken up by seat angle. I think he also had, the new bike had a 40 mil stem and he had like a 55 or maybe a 50 or a 60.
Totally.
So that's another, that's a chunk of it as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, something to think about is if you want it, and also too, if just as a point of reference for what's comfortable for you or even just a landmark of what you know what it feels like, even if it's not comfortable for you,
right.
It's just nose of the saddle to handlebar.
Yeah.
It's a good measurement to know. And if you want to know another one, you could take a 4-foot level across your handlebar and see if it's above or below the saddle.
Right.
And if so, how much.
Right.
And you can start forming the measurements of the triangle that you need to, I mean, if you really want to get your bike set up, you need to learn the measurements of your triangle.
Right.
The saddle to the bottom bracket for a given crank length, the tip of the saddle to the bars, and that might change with your over time with fit philosophy and stuff.
Right.
But it's at least good to know what a recreation of that would be.
Sure. And then as a starting point, maybe.
Yeah.
And
maybe you know what you like, and it becomes more of a North Star and less of a landmark on the way.
Right. So, yeah, no, that's a great point. Speaking of fit, you had some thoughts on higher bars go with longer reach.
How much time do you think we have?
We're probably about 5 or 6 minutes from an hour.
I feel like this is a long conversation.
All right.
That particular thing maybe could be a long conversation.
I think
along with more just talk about how reaches or about how bars just keep getting higher. So I say we push that one to the next show.
That's
Teaser.
That's
teaser.
A teaser.
Bars are getting
folks,
higher.
Bars are getting higher.
And as that happens, reaches might need to get longer.
Right.
Again, more.
And another teaser on that is, are the higher bars actually going to put you into a more athletic, stronger ride position?
I'll tell a story about that on the next show too.
Exactly. And there's
Pablo from Corsair, basically approached me just as I was about to do a run in downhill in Fontana, and started stand like this, and he pushed me, and stand like that, and he pushed me, and he basically demonstrated what you're trying. Anyway,
and so this is 15 years in the making, but foundation training teaser. I think all of this is part of the conversation. I have something, and this is maybe 5 minutes.
Okay.
So I recently sold my Trans E Elite Advanced mountain bike to a friend of mine. Has essentially never mountain biked, and the last time we tried mountain biking was probably 25 years ago, and pedaling up Main Trail on Peters Canyon, and just was a mess. Right? That was the last time he ever mountain biked. Because the barrier to entry is pretty steep, right, on climbs.
Yeah.
Even up Main Trail, past Big Red, that last hill to get to the gate, that can be pretty tough.
Yeah.
And so he called me up one day and worked it out and wanted to take this off my hands. And so fantastic. We go out to a local park, and we do 1,800 or 1,900 feet of climbing. And he was smiles. He said, Auk, in awe of some of the vistas of just a real local.
Yeah.
Auk, I would never be able to do this. And this is amazing.
Yeah, that's so cool.
He's a surfer, and he says, there's so much about this that reminds me of surfing.
Right. Me too.
And it was awesome to see, riding through the eyes of my buddy.
That's really cool.
So I think, he was like, do you think people are going to look down on us because we're riding e-bikes? I said, 2 years ago, yeah, but not now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, so that was a fantastic experience for my buddy. But we've kind of had this conversation from time to time, and I think maybe it's a good one to return to from time to time. What do you carry with you in your fanny pack or your hip sack
for local park rides where I'm never more than 5-10 miles from the car?
Yeah.
At least one form of inflation, sometimes two. So sometimes a CO2 and a hand pump, sometimes just one.
Right.
Tire plugs.
Yep. Tire plugs.
Tire levers.
Yep. Tire levers.
A small multi-tool.
A small multi-tool.
Yep. A spare tube.
And maybe not one as high-end as the Tubalitos.
But that thing is reusable.
And it's a
durable good.
It is very lightweight, great to put in the hip sack.
I think I need one of those.
Yeah. CO2, you mentioned CO2.
Yep.
These things are great.
Which plug kit do you carry?
Ooh, let's see.
You got the Dynaplug. Yeah. The Racer. That's the one I carry too.
I think I carry this. Yeah, this is actually what I carried. And this is actually the bag that I carry.
Swift Industries.
Yeah.
Do you know the story of how we got Swift Industries?
No.
I was at a dealer camp with Kona. I love that. How you can, the cap or the patch Velcros on and you get extra ones.
Exactly.
You can get more. I was at a dealer camp for Kona in Bellingham, and we're riding these really rad trails in the woods, and they set up this party in the middle of it all.
Okay.
And Swift Industries was just there hanging out, and they were super cool.
Right.
And I was texting Brian, have you heard of these guys? And he's like, no, but they look rad. And we've been selling a bunch of them ever since.
Yeah, man. This I think is is actually the one that I have.
I love too that I have this one too. It has like the bottle holders that you can add on the sides and other accessories that you can. These are like an accessory add-on thing.
Kind of webbing here.
You can have a phone holder there. I really like it.
This front is great. Oh, the other thing that I actually. Oh, dude, stickers.
You know what? I'm gonna dig mine up. I have that pack, and I've been wearing a much smaller one, but I'm just gonna dig it up for big days.
This this front is great for holding. I actually carry a spare battery, like a spare SRAM
AXS battery.
AXS battery. And my wallet goes in the front. I have a small wallet goes in the front, phone and keys and everything into the main bag.
Is that your main everyday hip sack?
That is my main everyday hip sack.
I have that for like big stuff, and I have the Patagonia. Oh, that's much slimmer and lighter, and more forming around the body.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. Maybe mine
and cheaper.
I wonder if I have a smaller version of this. Is there a smaller version of one that looks exactly like this?
Maybe a little bit, yeah.
So
yeah,
but that's my everyday driver, and I got to try the water bottle attachment.
Cool. I think that's a podcast. Thanks, Auk. Thanks, Jake. Thanks to all the people who work here with us at The Path. Huge thanks to all the riders who support The Path. And let's all remember thanks to all the listeners.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's all remember to love the bikes we ride.